So when you're writing Until the Ink Runs Out, were you listening to a lot of Cannibal Corpse?
Oh, dude. Yes. That's always been one of my biggest influences for 18 Visions. I mean, we would literally be writing songs together, Brandon and I, and then like go in the house and like watch live Cannibal tapes.
Fuck yes. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm glad you're right here with me. My name is Tyler Herrera, and this is Hardcore Dropout. So that clip you just heard up front was none other than Keith Barney. And yes, I'm talking about Keith Barney from 18 Visions, Throwdown, and Adamantium. Now, I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet because really, if you are listening to this episode, you probably want to hear what Keith has to say because Keith is an absolute legend when it comes to, late 90s, early 2000s, hardcore, metallic hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it. This dude's fingerprints are all over the genre in that era. And my God, what an honor and a privilege to have him on the show. This feels like the first time I have a big guest where it's like, man, this dude, has had such an impact on the music that I love. And I am so thankful for the opportunity. And again, I'm just going to shut up because there's so much cool lore, so much cool behind the scenes stuff, a lot of cool storytelling. And if you are a fan of 2000s metalcore, this is your shit right here. So without further ado, Keith, welcome to Hardcore Dropout.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. It's an honor to have you. A lot of people obviously know your history with 18 Visions and with Throwdown. And as, a disciple of 2000s metalcore, a lot of your music has had a big impact on me. So it's definitely an honor.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, that being said, like I said, a lot of people know you from 18 Visions and from Throwdown, but I'm curious, could we start with an Adamantium history lesson?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome,
Sure.
cool.
What would you like to learn?
Well, so Adamantium was like one of the first bands I heard about as I was getting into heavy music, but I really don't know the history. So Orange County hardcore band, right?
Yeah, actually, it was really my first band. So in high school, early days of high school, originally we were called Collapse. And so the drummer, Matt Horowitz, and I, we played soccer together. We went to high school together. We started going to shows together. And that turned into Adamantium later after Matt and I, we were like at a festival and we met a few other hardcore kids that lived up in like the Costa Mesa area. We're in like South Orange. We grew up in South Orange County, and they were like kind of more like mid Orange County. And so we met them, and that turned out to be like the singer and then the guitar player. And then that morphed from Collapse. We put out a demo and changed the name to Adamantium, and then went from there. Yeah.
Okay. And the name Adamantium is direct reference to X-Men, right? To Wolverine?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to read comics and graphic novels, and I had
Hell yeah.
some Wolverine graphic novels and stuff. So,
man, little did Marvel know they were just throwing an alley-oop for like one of the best hardcore band names ever.
Yeah, right. They were busy with doing it. Yeah, right, dude. Wolverine was way cooler than we were.
I don't know, man. Adamantium just sounds so hard. And again, as a kid, when my brother told me about Adamantium, I was just like, that is such a fucking cool name. And then I hear you guys, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the most intense thing I've ever heard, and I love it.
Well, we were total obsessed, young hardcore nerds, and stealing from our influences as they do, and I don't know, it's a crazy world that I've been playing with Matt, who's the drummer for Adamantium, and now he's the drummer for 18 Visions, and I've just been playing with him like my whole life, so it's kind of cool how it has come full circle in that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. So you were an original and even founding member of Adamantium then?
Yeah. We really kind of were the kind of linchpin for getting it started. And so in Adamantium, we did like a demo. We did a 7-inch, and then we did an album. And then what happened was... and during that time, we were playing tons of local shows, and we did a little bit. We did like a West Coast thing, and we drove out to like the Midwest and played just a few things, but we weren't really getting out that much. We did one tour around the U.S. where we got to like half the shows because the van always broke down, kind of a thing. And then we did a couple songs for like some compilations. And then our drummer Matt, he sold out. We were a straight edge band, and then he sold out. And then we had a conversation with him, and it was like, I'm gonna get real nerdy for you now.
I'm here for it.
Cool. Yeah. And so he was like, yeah, I'm like, not straight edge. We're like, oh, okay, well, you know, Adamantium, we started it as a straight edge band, so we're going to find a new drummer. And he's like, yeah, totally cool. So good on both parties. But Matt was such a good drummer. It was like impossible to replace a straight edge drummer at that time. We're like, dude, like, he's like the best drummer in Orange County. Like, what the hell are we going to do? And so I wanted to like break up the band and start up a new project where we didn't have like, it didn't have to be like a straight edge band, right? I just wanted to like, okay, let's sunset Adamantium then and like do a new thing. And the other guys did not want to do that. So we had a difference of opinion. So they wanted to move forward with like, just get a drummer that was not straight edge. And I was like, no, I started the band like to be like this. So that's where I quit Adamantium at that point. They went on to put another album out, which I wasn't a part of. But that's how I kind of, I don't know, I was like a free agent. And I was like, that's how the 18 Visions thing happened after that.
Okay, cool. And so then were you on From the Depths of Depression and When It Rains It Pours?
Just From the Depths. So When It Rains It Pours, I was not on that one. That was like right after I quit.
Okay. And so I have to know for...
But there is one song on that record that I wrote called Virus. And that song is one of the songs that before I quit, we had recorded for like a compilation. Like I can't remember the name of the comp right now. But they ended up re-recording it for that album too.
So your fingerprints are still on that album?
I guess so. And that was like my favorite song that I ever wrote for Adamantium.
Oh shit.
So like,
of course.
It lived on, which is cool.
Yeah. Bittersweet. Yeah. So on From the Depths of Depression, I'm so curious about the sound. At that time, were you consciously thinking, I'm going to write metallic hardcore? Like, what's the headspace you're in at that time? Because metalcore's still forming.
Yeah. There were so many influences. Yes, I wanted it to be metallic. I was pulling things from different bands that I thought were interesting at the time. Personally, I always loved Sepultura. There was a band from California called Thar. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they kind of had some like, they were heavy, but they also had some melodic parts. In the back in the day, they would play some songs or play some like shows every once in a while with like the Deftones or Jonah went on to like form like One Line Drawing and like I think and some other bands anyways. And I loved Bloodlet. They were a super interesting band. They had like different time signature things that I was just starting to get into in Adamantium. So I was kind of pulling from a lot of things. My favorite band as a kid was the band Unbroken from San Diego. Neighborhood. And so that was a huge influence always. So yeah, lots of different things, whether it was hardcore or just straight up metal. But I've just always gravitated towards hardcore metal.
That's awesome. And was that sound? Cam and I talked about this a little bit. I think he described himself as like an indecision fanatic or something. But like, was that sound kind of attributed to the Indecision Records scene at the time, or roster, I guess I should say? Or is it a lot of metallic hardcore stuff?
No, I think we were definitely a different band. When we signed with Indecision and he started putting us out, we were definitely like a new thing for Indecision. Some of the other bands on Indecision at the time were like very more like traditional hardcore. You know, they would just be like fast hardcore. maybe they had like a little bit of metallic parts, but we were certainly like, oh, we would sound like a metal band, compared to the context of everything else that was on the label. So, and we were also younger than some of the bands that he had put out, I think at the time, maybe. So yeah, I think we kind of pushed Indecision and maybe opened it up to like some other things. Cause then later on, like he obviously, signed a lot more stuff like that, like Bleeding Through, that was very metal, it started opening the doors, I think, for other things, like at least maybe in his mind or something. But
yeah,
definitely
planted the seed, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because, well, yeah, like we were friends with so many other local bands that were like in the scene at the time that like maybe our touch point like expanded into more touch points and whatever.
Yeah.
And we were all super excited about like just playing shows together, supporting each other. And in this area, Indecision was like became the family for everyone. He was like going to all the shows. Dave was taking the pictures. He was making the layouts and like, putting out the bands. And so he was like the godfather of Orange County hardcore for sure.
Quite a title, because goddamn, like the synergy that seems to have been happening there is just insane when you think about the roster of bands that came out of Orange County.
Yeah. Yeah, it really spiraled into like its own life, which was just so cool. And I feel so thankful to have like been in the middle of that. Another big like nexus point in that time was basically the day I graduated high school, I moved out and I moved to like Newport, Costa Mesa area, because that's where the other guys in Adamantium lived, and a lot of my friends that I was meeting from the scene, they all lived up that way, or Huntington Beach and that kind of stuff. Some Irvine, but so I moved in with our other guitar player from Adamantium.
Okay.
And we would just be like playing guitar in the kitchen, like writing songs together and on the couch. So our place, there was two different places in those areas. So that of all of our friends hung out. So like a lot of the bands that you've heard of from Orange County, there was the hardcore house, and then there was the softcore house, and we all kind of knew each other, and we all kind of hung out. And those were kind of like the two hangout spots. So at my house, or my apartment, everyone would just like, we'd go to a show at Showcase Theater, we'd go to Del Taco afterwards, and then we'd end up at my house eating Del Taco, and there'd be like, 20-something people in my tiny little living room hanging out, and it was just great. Yeah. Like, I just like go to bed at fucking 4 a.m. or something, finally, when everyone left. So all those people, like, before I was in 18 Visions or some of these other bands, I was just like, we were all hanging out together and meeting up at those places.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool, because I remember, I think, Brandon in like a Bleeding Through DVD being outside of Del Taco or something and talking about like that was the spot after shows, and every scene has the food spot after shows.
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And again, it really seems like Orange County was just an incubator for this kind of metallic hardcore, kind of pre-metalcore movement.
Yeah, dude. Like we had Vinyl Solution Records in Huntington Beach. Was kind of our main spot, and it was like on any given night, if everyone was out of work or whatever, it was like go to Vinyl Solution and just flip through the records and see what's new, or go get food or go to a movie or something. Those were kind of or obviously going to a show or band practice. That was kind of the main stuff.
Awesome.
So we were always like finding new shit. Always talking, like, and when we would meet up, it would be like, oh, did you get the new Coalesced? Oh, did you get the new whatever? And like, playing stuff for each other.
Yeah. I'm curious, just selfishly, I want to know, because I definitely had the blessing of, one, having 2 older brothers that handed me a lot of music, and then 2, that led right into the MySpace era. For you, how were you guys discovering, how did you know about a band like Coalesce? It's, I think, on the other side of the country, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were like Midwest. A big thing for me and my friends was Maximum Rock and Roll. As like a big famous zine, and I would buy that from Vinyl Solution, typically, or if I like mail ordered it, like I'd actually literally write and like get it out from the mail. But I would take that to school with me, And I would just like flip through every single page and look at every single review for every single record. And there would be like Victory Records ads in there, and Second Nature fanzine, and like all these different zines would have like, and so through all the zines, that's how you would find out about bands, and they would have interviews in them. And at the same time, a total nerd myself, I was doing my own fanzine, taking pictures at shows, doing my own interviews on the phone with different bands. So all of those kinds of things you would like learn from different people about, did you hear VOD? Like,
as in Vision of Disorder?
Yeah, Vision of Disorder, like before they had like blown up or anything, we had friends from the band Excessive Force from Orange County, and they went on tour and they got a demo. They came back here and like they started sharing the demo tape, and people were starting to burn that. And it would just get around, if anything was good enough, like you just wanted to show your friends. So God,
that's so fucking awesome. I kind of miss the what's the right word? It's kind of like there's like a prestige around albums when they're so good that you have to share them like that.
Yeah.
I kind of miss that, because now a great album comes out and it's a blessing to have so much good music, but also like a week later there's new music and you forget about that previously great album,
I know. It's like you don't have enough time for it to sink in, pick your favorite track.
100%.
It's like, you could listen to the same album over and over again for like months and months. Like, you'd wait. One of my favorite bands when I was younger was called Overcast. I could like listen to an Overcast record and like they wouldn't put another thing out for like another year or like, So like all this time, and like you saying, like there just wasn't as many bands, so it was easier to kind of, nerd out.
Yeah, really fall in love with that stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because that's just like, I know I owe a lot of my taste and, musical history to a lot of what came out of Orange County. So I'm glad that gives me some context. And, I'm just going to fanboy for a second. I wrote this down the other day. I wrote down Within a Dream off of The Depths of Depression. I said, Within a Dream is a prelude of everything to come: panic chords, tight riffing, double bass, clean production, fast two-step. And so I was just like, man, I really owe a lot to the music you guys were writing back then.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man.
If I had a second favorite, that was my second favorite song for Adamantium that I wrote.
So Virus was the first one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it later.
It
was like written later in the band. Within a Dream was definitely written like earlier on. But like if I look back on the Adamantium songs, or like when we've done like, we've been asked to play like reunion type things, play a set, some fest or something like that. Like when we play those songs, I'm like, oh, those are my favorites.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad I chose a good one then, because when I listened to that song, I'm just like, fuck, man, this could come out today and I would still love it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, good shit, man. So your drummer breaks edge. You have that debacle about getting a new drummer. You end up leaving, and then you were not on the first 18 Visions material, right? You came in on Until the Ink Runs Out.
Right. Yeah. When I look back, it's actually kind of a cool story. I went to the very first 18 Vision show, and I was probably with Matt. We probably drove together, our drummer, and they played at a roller rink in Huntington Beach. They had like a side room, like I don't know, it was like supposed to be like for birthday parties or something. I don't know. But they had a room out there, and I saw them play. They opened the show. I didn't know them at all yet. So I just went straight up to James after they finished playing, and I had my own zine, and I like handed him my zine, and I was like, hey dude, I do this, whatever. Like I probably was like, we should do an interview or something sometime, and I'm from, South Orange County, whatever. And he was like, sick. And like, so we instantly kind of became friends. And then I met the other guys like Ken and Dave and like the other guys. So even from the very beginning, I was like a fan. I got their demo, they put out like the Lifeless EP. I was going to all the shows, I'd wear the gear, like whatever. So they did Lifeless. They did Yesterday's Time Killed. I went to that recording with Brandon. I drove down to San Diego where it was recorded and hung out with them while they recorded. And
Fuck
then the next recording was I'm such a nerd for recording. I love that process. It's just so I feel like I'm behind the curtain kind of a thing, you know. So there's nothing I'd rather do like hang out with like my friends and like talk about hardcore and like watch them record and and then there was a 2-song 7-inch for Trustkill Records when the guy signed to Trustkill. I was at that recording again. And I did guest vocals on that 7-inch. And then right around that time is like when I quit Adamantium, and they had at that point turned into a 4-piece.
Okay.
And they said, "Oh, you should play and be like second guitar." And so that's how I joined. And then Brandon and I, who were already hanging out all the time, we were like going to get tattoos all the time together and like going to shows together and all that stuff. I'd meet up with him at his house, where he lived, and we started writing Until the Ink Runs Out, like right after I joined. And so we just started the whole album like right then.
So you did write Until the Ink Runs Out. You did help write it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was just doing some research, and I was like, I couldn't tell if you joined maybe as it was being recorded or if you were actually able to help write it.
Yeah, no, I was the very inception, all the first practices, all stuff. I mean, we started playing shows together, but like right when I joined, it was like, let's write some new songs. And so that's, and that record was pretty much myself and Brandon, and then Ken, who was our drummer. He was starting to write songs for the band too at that time. So it's a good collaboration.
Hell yeah. So you guys were you were very early on in the Trustkill. Did it feel like a big deal that you had Trustkill support at that time, or was it just kind of another DIY, like, cool, we're going to put our record out?
It was very cool. I can't speak from their perspective, obviously, but like Trustkill was new and up and coming, and it hadn't blown up yet, though. I'd have to like do some my own research to figure out which releases were open at that or were done at that time, but it was so cool that we were on a label that was from the other side of the country. Like that was very different. Like I had been doing Indecision, like local stuff, and like I had friends that just like put out our demos and put out a 7-inch here and there, stuff like that. But like, whoa, this label from the other side of the country is, things just were different back then. We just weren't quite dialed in with the internet and stuff yet. So that was a big deal. And then going out there and like meeting them, and because of meeting Josh from Trustkill, like he would introduce us to so many other people, that he grew up with from his scene, and that was just an instant into like connecting with all these other bands from the East Coast, and Josh from Trustkill in his own right was such a he put on shows at his house all the time. He had a basement. Okay. He'd have like big shows, like all the big hardcore bands would come through and play like his basement and stuff. So all these bands that I knew of. So anyway, he in himself was just like a really cool, interesting person, part of the scene,
Yeah. So it did feel like something special, because I feel like for as quickly as Trustkill blew up after that, I feel like it had to have been like the synergy was clearly there, where like there's momentum, he's signing the right bands, the scenes, it sounds like, played a big part in that also. Yeah,
for sure. And I think he was trying to reach out and find a band or two from the other side of the, because the big label at the time I think was Victory Records, and they had bands kind of from like all different places. And so I think Josh was like trying to establish himself as a label, and he really wanted to get something out from California, at least the West Coast. So it all kind of fit.
That's awesome. Yeah. Big, I said a 2000s metalcore disciple earlier, and I think really what I mean is a Trustkill disciple,
Okay.
And yeah, I've been fortunate enough to talk to Josh via Hardcore Dropout, and, just expressed my gratefulness and gratitude that like so many albums off Trustkill were just like, I just devoured that shit when they came out. You know what I mean?
We just played Syracuse last weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it was like this Hellfest like DVD anniversary thing, and so Josh was there, and we hung out. He was busy doing his thing at the merch table and stuff like that, but we typically see him at least once a year somewhere.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. So when you're writing Until the Ink Runs Out, I'm such a nerd for this influence thing, you know, like sonically, especially visually, we'll get to that part, but sonically, Until the Ink Runs Out, to me is so interesting because you can call it a metalcore album, but like you can hear the Sepultura. And also to me, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong as not a guitar player, but were you listening to a lot of Cannibal Corpse?
Oh, dude. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that was like that's always been one of my biggest influences for 18 Visions. So I'm glad you could hear that. I mean, we would literally be writing songs together, Brandon and I, and then like go in the house and like watch live Cannibal tapes.
Fuck yes.
Just as like a break, you know. I mean, we watched all kinds of stuff, but like that was one of them. And yeah, so that was one of the very exciting things actually for me getting into. I mean, it being an Adamantium fan, you could hear the difference between Adamantium and Until the Ink or 18 Visions because it was darker, and I wanted to do that because I liked some death metal. I liked some more extreme metal stuff, and I wanted to be able to like explore doing that kind of like darker metal that I loved. So yes, Cannibal was a big inspiration.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Because growing up, I always thought of like Until the Ink Runs Out as like, again, one of like the first albums that, as metalcore really started to take shape. But you look back on 2000s metalcore and there's a lot of At the Gates worship, you know, a lot of like super like mellow death, like melodic stuff.
Yeah.
But in preparation for this episode and listening to Until the Ink Runs Out, I was like, man, this is so chunky and like a lot of low end stuff where I'm like, this is really like brutal in comparison to a lot of the more At the Gates type metalcore of that era.
I didn't like that type of metal personally. I know like maybe some of the other guys did, but like the melodic metal thing just never did something for me. I just wanted it to be nasty, dark, dissonant. I'm way more into that kind of stuff. And then there's like other bands, like some of the big influences for that album were Botch, Coalesce, obviously Cannibal, Sepultura. Yeah, you definitely nailed it there. What else were some other? Those were kind of like the big ones, I think. Unbroken was always an influence for me. Overcast, I think I mentioned. That was a big one for me.
Overcast
Earth Crisis, I would have to say Earth Crisis, one of my favorite bands of all time. You know, heavy metallic hardcore, like the Destroy the Machines album, like no one can do it better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just did a video on YouTube about like 7 essential like metalcore albums from the 90s, because I was like, okay, as a 2000s fan, I was like, there's a lot I really need to digest from the 90s that I hadn't fully sat with.
Yeah.
And listening to Destroy the Machines now as an adult, I was like, this is fucking bonkers that this was 1996.
Yeah.
Like I can't fathom that level of heavy back then, and what it must have done for you guys when you first heard that.
Yeah, you know, the original California Takeover was it was a show. You know, Victory Records put out a live album of it, and it if you never heard it, you should check it out. It was Snapcase, Strife, and Earth Crisis playing in California. Okay. And it was like fucking packed, like to the teeth. People like sneaking in literally through the roof of the club.
Fuck.
Yeah, people used to do this all the time. So Showcase Theater was like this legendary club in Corona, California, and we played there a ton of times. And yeah, like they would pack it out so they could sell as many tickets as they were trying to make as much money as they possibly could, right?
Yeah.
So this is before like fire, like capacities and stuff. So people would just be standing on every single thing you could possibly think of. And it had like an upstairs area, and you would walk upstairs and they would put merch up there. And up above that was the roof, and people would actually climb up the building and sneak in from the top. And
wild.
So yeah, it was hot as fuck in there. But Earth Crisis, I mean, compared to a lot of like of the kind of more old school or more like hardcore, as hardcore was like kind of transitioning in the 90s, more metallic, they were the first one that was like live. I mean, it was so heavy. It was it was so brutal.
Yeah.
And they were so good at their instruments, so tight. A lot of the other hardcore bands were all about like jumping and running around and like stage diving and like throwing their fucking guitars around and like just going crazy and just like the live experience. Earth Crisis was more about like, I'm just chilling and I'm playing my instrument really well, and just all they cared about was sonically how heavy it was. You know, that was kind of the big thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And their message.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's, you know, anyone who was found straight edge in the 90s or early 2000s probably attributed it to Earth Crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a Destroy the Machines tattoo.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, one of the first band names I heard from my brothers was Earth Crisis.
Rad.
Yeah, I'm very spoiled in that sense. So do you mind, as a guitar player, expanding on like the Sepultura and Cannibal Corpse sound a little bit more? Because you said nasty and dissonant, and when I think of Until the Ink Runs Out, I definitely think of dissonant.
Yeah. Cannibal Corpse, and I should throw in Old Machine Head in there too, but like, the guitar sound that we were going for, that was a classic. It was like 5150 guitar amps, with like a tube screamer, and we were just ripping off what Earth Crisis was doing and what Cannibal Corpse was doing. They were doing the same thing. And then I played through a Gibson Les Paul, which I was pulling from Unbroken. Those are the guitars that they used. And so that was kind of the setup. And on the recording, I mean, the riff wise, we were trying to add some kind of like blast beat parts, which, you know, you can hear on that album, which, you know, kind of comes from, you know, Cannibal. I know Brandon really liked Cryptopsy. He, trying to think of some of the other, you know, things that we're super into. Malevolent Creation was another like old, you know, kind of death metal type band. And what else? Sepultura would be more of like the groovy single string kind of like roots type stuff. And even some of the stuff they did on KSAD. I have a KSAD tattoo. That, I mean, Sepultura is everything to me. And it's funny because I heard Roots first, and then I went back and listened to Chaos AD, and I was like, oh my God, they were like even sicker then, you know? But that type of like single string breakdown stuff, we incorporated a lot of. Ken, our drummer, was really interested in like time signature stuff. So was I. I loved Coalesce. He was really into that kind of thing. So he was bringing a lot of that stuff to the table.
That's fucking awesome. Because
those things mixed together, and
because when I listen to Until the Ink Runs Out and just kind of put it in context, I'm like, it's kind of just a mashup of all the heaviest shit that was out at that time. You know, like
that's what we were going for.
Yeah, I mean, you guys absolutely nailed it, you know, and it still blows my mind that was what, 2000 when it came out, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that is such a trip.
And I'll say, because I see it behind you, Nirvana was, I mean, I grew up on grunge, and so there was definitely like a grunge angle that I was always trying to slide in parts. And so the dirtiness that I'm talking about, a lot of that comes from like Nirvana and that kind of Unbroken. In my eyes, the quintessential thing that they did better than everyone was they wrote songs, they recorded them, and when they play live, they played them like half the time. Like, they were just fucking throwing their, like, not like jumping around and going crazy or whatever, but they played everything so dirty and raw. They did not care about, it was all about the vibe that they were putting forward. They looked so intense, and the fact that like in the middle of a riff, he would just stop playing the riff and just start doing something else totally crazy, and you're just like, whoa, wait, where are you going with that, you know? And
Yeah.
you were just totally like, what are they going to do next, was the kind of vibe. And so that was some of the stuff that I was like trying to like pull from too.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by dirty and messy. And like, so I wanted some of that weird feedback, weird notes. Like we literally had riffs where on that album where there wasn't really a part like written. You just go dun dun dun, and then go just play craziness, dun dun dun, play craziness, you know.
Yeah.
And it's over the years when we've had like new members, I would tell them like, yeah, just play whatever you want during that part, and they'd be like, what?
Fuck yes. Yeah, it breaks their brain a little bit because
Like,
they think
wait.
they have to. Yeah, they think they have to learn this song like, you know, it's a definitely a historic record, but really you guys, it sounds like we're just doing whatever the fuck you wanted.
Yeah, you're like, no, this part, it's supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be different every time.
That's fucking awesome. And I can even draw a line from like early Nirvana stuff that's a little sludgier and a little bit more I guess you could say unhinged. Yeah, Bleach. Like, and now I'm like really connecting those dots, and it's like giving me a little bit of chills because Nirvana is huge for me, and I'm like, holy shit, it's so cool. Not a lot of people in heavy music talk about Nirvana, but I think they have a place in heavy music.
Oh, dude, I mean, they absolutely do. They destroyed everything. They brought everything down and started it all over. And so many bands pull from them. That just raw, the rawness. I mean, especially like Dave Grohl's drums are insane.
Yes. Yep.
You know, and the fact that they could sound, you know, what they did so well was they took pop and punk and dirtiness and like melded it into this like super memorable but like respectably underground punk thrash, you know. And you're just like,
yes.
So people from the more like not from the underground could be like, oh, this is cool, and then people from the underground were like, dude, like this is so cool, you know, this is so
yeah
good.
Dude, and that's why I'm so glad that you said all of that, because that is my exact same argument. Is like, dude, they figured out a formula that no one has really perfected the way they did of taking all the things you and I love about heavy music, but making it with a pop sensibility that made it such an enjoyable listen. You know what I mean? And like, it just, I don't really think it's been done to that level since then, you know?
Yeah. No, totally. I think we covered a Nirvana song. We did a 1996 cover album, but in the early days, I think we covered Tourette's. Which is
Great
just
song.
like, do whatever the fuck you want song. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say, you can kind of just lose your shit to that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. So we covered all the sonic stuff, but also something that struck me about Until the Ink Runs Out is like, and I guess this is part of the whole 18 Visions legacy, is aesthetically Until the Ink Runs Out. I think it's so cool because the logo looks super death metal, but then the title's written in cursive, and then if you look at the artwork, it's kind of like, I think like romantic and goth in a way. There's like the butterfly, it's like half a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like a rose, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where were you guys pulling from visually?
So we had a friend that was from the same area, and his name was Troy, and he was really tight with James, and they kind of came up in high school and stuff together. And Troy was the one who painted the logo, and then he painted the stuff that became the cover that was like photographed.
Yeah.
So that all came from him. I'm not exactly sure why he chose those elements. Like, I wonder if James gave him much direction or not, or if he was just like free flowing. But it's interesting you say some of the polls from like goth. That's, bands like The Cure were super important to us. Especially James, vocally, like that kind of like pretty meets dirty. He's always been kind of interested in, like James has never been like he grew up in hardcore and stuff like that, but like he's never been like the traditionalist hardcore guy, right? Like, you don't look at him and get that sense, although he loves Integrity and all these old bands. he's always been left of center on the aesthetic kind of like like I think he kind of nailed it with like the goth thing. Like, you know, he's kind of always leaned that way a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, what an impression he left by leaning left of center, because my first ever Warped Tour, I was waiting in line and my friends were already inside. You guys were playing that Warped Tour, and the people behind me, we started talking, and, you know, we were just trading bands we were excited to see. And one of them says 18 Visions with so much conviction, and he lifts up his shirt and just in fat, like chiseled tip Sharpie, it just says James fucking Hart across his stomach. And really? I kid you not, I swear to God, and I kid you not, I'm walking by your guys' set that day. I see that same dude fucking crowd surfing. It was like, it's just stamped in my fucking memory. And it was like, that was probably 2006. So I think is it the self-titled, right?
In 2006? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that had just come out. So like, that was just like such a, like, again, ingrained, such a like core memory for me of like, oh shit, people really, really fuck with James and 18 Visions, you know?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so he definitely, it seems like he drove a lot of that. But yeah, so coming back to Until the Ink Runs Out, I'm curious if you, like, looking back, what do you think sets that album apart from other 2000s metalcore stuff?
I think because it was darker. I think there were bands like I was talking about Botch, is just kind of like the perfect example. They were like mostly chaotic. Or Coalesce, who was heavy but mostly chaotic. Like they really, or Bloodlet, same thing. They were heavy, but they were mostly like, they really leaned in the time signature stuff, and they went full that direction, right? We were trying to blend that influence with metal and hardcore. And so I think I don't know, in some ways for like a lot of hardcore kids, it maybe was a little bit more palatable or something. You know, because it was fun to lean that way, but then bring it back. So I've always been a big fan of like musically dynamics. So if it's always 4/4 timing, okay, you know, it's pretty straightforward. But if you throw a curveball every once in a while, it's kind of interesting. Oh, what was that? And then it comes back, and then you fall back into place, and that feels nice. Same thing with like being really heavy and then having some melodic tips, so that when it comes back to being heavy, it feels heavy again, you know? Versus some bands that just like lean heavy the entire time, and you're just like, like it sounds the same, you know, or whatever. So I think we had that going for us for sure. I definitely think the aesthetic part, like we were just talking about, was a big thing that was like left of center. Maybe those were kind of the main things or something. We were a straight edge band.
Kind of low key a straight edge band though, right?
Yeah. We never leaned into that super hard, or overtly. It was never like something we preached about, you know, or anything like that, you know. Most people, to be honest, most people just didn't even know that, like you said, like low key, like it was just a thing, you know. Yeah.
Well, there's also this interesting dichotomy because James has, look, I'll just say it, James had like a lot of sex appeal, you know. He had that rock star image, and you know, there's that picture of your bass player licking like the bass strings, I think, also. So you guys had kind of this like rock star image because you just genuinely did what you wanted to do. But I'm also like, it's so funny because you guys were straight edge and you were probably just like, I don't know, eating fucking Snickers bars in the van or something, you know?
Some of the influence on that, which we haven't touched on, is like Motley Crue. Okay, so the ability to like incorporate some of the fun into it was definitely something that we were like playing with. So live, like the way we dressed or the way we looked or whatever was, you know, so we were like putting on like ties and all that kind of thing. We thought that was kind of interesting and would set us apart from a lot of bands. So just visually, you came to a hardcore show and you saw us, whatever, and like, oh, like they have like That was different, I think, at the time. Um, but the kind of like vibe of something like a Motley Crue, which was dark, but
Yeah.
kind of like fun and had like a little bit of that, that that big stadium energy in a
Hmm.
small club was something that was kind of fun to play with a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely apparent throughout your guys' history, even uh, from the album visuals to the way you guys dress to then the evolution in the sound, I mean, it's no secret that's kind of part of the 18 Visions like stamp on hardcore.
Yeah, and it like took on its life of its own, and of course it was like talked about all the time back then, and like people would talk about like James on like message boards and stuff like that, and then it like turned into like fashion core. Like people were talking about like
Yeah.
this fashion core thing that
Hmm.
like was funny enough was started like on the other side of the country, but
Really?
yeah, it was our friends, but it was these kids from like Long Island, and
Okay.
we played a show. The way it started, we played a show in Long Island, and these kids, well, we became friends with them. We didn't really know them at the time, I don't think, but like
Okay.
at the show they were selling shirts that said fashion core on them. And then
Really?
the two things got tied together because we played the show. And I think a lot of
Hmm.
people thought like those were our shirts or something. But no, we weren't like trying to start something
Yeah.
that would be way too like overt for us, like
Hmm.
on the nose. Like no, like
Yeah.
we were just doing our thing and like people like saw it. But they went on the nose. and
Yeah.
then and then I think maybe word of mouth got out of control and like then fashion core, and then
Yeah.
if anyone dressed anything like James at that point, there's like, that's not hardcore, and they started
Hmm.
this whole thing, and
Yeah. I think
which
it's
was
so
funny.
funny. I posted this recently. I posted a picture of you guys, and it's you probably know which picture I'm talking about. White background. You guys are in all black, and I think you have pink ties on.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, I posted that picture, and I said, "What if I told you these guys wrote some of the sickest breakdowns in hardcore?" Because I look back on that photo, and I'm like, that is the epitome of 18 Visions. Looking how you want, but still
Yeah.
writing some of the best fucking music.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
definitely left your stamp there. So, big reason we're here today is because of the re-recording and re-release of Until the Ink Runs Out. So when did the idea to re-record it start to get thrown around?
We're kind of was doing a revisit of some of our catalog
Hmm.
for a few reasons. So the first one we did was Vanity,
Hmm.
and as I kind of mentioned earlier, I love the process of recording. And
Hmm.
so over the years, I've just continuously dabbled in recording. And
Hmm.
it used to be making demos, and then it was like, I don't know, I feel like maybe I could try like put something out. And so
Yeah.
before we did the full Vanity re-release, I had just did like a few songs that we put out like a single, or like it was just a few songs, and we're like, oh, that sounded pretty good. And so from there, it was like, let's re-release the album so it could be available on vinyl,
Yeah.
which you couldn't find, and
Hmm.
then I could use it as a chance to like re-record and practice the recording side of things. I know we could make those songs even better now with like modern technology and everything, make it heavier, and really kind of like take like some of the things that we didn't like, get rid of that, take some of the things we really like, accentuate that, and
Yeah.
that's what we were trying to do. And it was really fun to revisit and re-record all that stuff. And then so we did Obsession. So naturally we wanted to do Until the Ink.
Yeah.
And Until the Ink in particular, like I feel like Obsession, would really lend to like, a modern recording and all this stuff, even though it's like a pretty good recording. Until the Ink was like a one that was like, I was always like, oh man, when we get to that one, that's going to be interesting because those songs are so old. I couldn't wait to like try to make it a solid, uh, cohesive, heavier, better recording. Just because in the back of our minds, we think like, I feel like those songs could still hold up maybe like in some ways, like that there's still a lot of music being made now that sounds like metallic hardcore, right?
Yeah.
And so it was such a very artistic thing to do back then for us. Like some of the songs are like really long and like the parts like never repeat and like,
Yeah.
that it was kind of fun to do it now. And like, okay, so maybe we don't have to do 20 riffs on the song. I took out like a few,
Yeah, absolutely.
Tried to tighten it a little bit. And so that was kind of a fun challenge, to do.
Yeah. What were some of the other things you said you like kind of dampened some things while you accentuated other things? What were some of those?
So like there's a song, revolutionizing sound of music on that record. And I think I just chopped off the ending.
Okay.
It was just like too many riffs. Like we don't need all that. And I just thought it was like kind of boring. So I was trying to like, you got to be careful, like not to go like too hard and like, mess around with things. And then there was like a lot of parts where like on Movie Produced Masterpiece, there are certain kind of like of the Cannibal parts where I'm adding, certain like kind of like darker like harmonies to the metal part to make it even more Cannibal. I'm musically at the time I didn't know as much as what I was doing, so we just didn't do that. Played it maybe is a little more straightforward. And like now I know how to add more things and then pan them in a way and kind of automate them in a way that like could make them clearer, parts you couldn't hear before. All of that. Yeah, and I just think the recording overall is just kind of helps bring it together, and accentuate it. Like, okay, one of the things that I did musically on this one for sure that's different than the original is I leaned into. I've been using a lot of pitch shifter.
Okay.
With my guitar stuff, but pitch shifting down, not like as an effect for like a whatever, but more of like just a 50% blended lower thing. So I would take a single string riff, like the beginning of John Lennon, and instead of like on the original recording, I'm playing like actual chords. I mean, it's barely audible because it's such a crazy riff, but like instead of playing the chords, I played the single note and then turned on the pitch shifter so it would just be even lower and darker.
Okay.
On the song The Nothing, there's a riff that was played kind of like chords a little higher up, whatever, but I changed it to like a single stream with that pitch shifter. Okay. So I ended up using that pitch shifter effect in a lot of places just to make it even heavier, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you really just kind of used modern production and equipment to really just augment what was already there.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, yeah. And then it sonically it sounds like different, even though a lot of the parts or most of the parts are all the same, it does feel like a little bit different, I think now.
Yeah. So you did record it then, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So to me, it still has some of the like, I hope this doesn't sound like an insult, but it has some of the like muddier qualities still of like of the first album where I was like, oh, this is cool. It sounds modern, don't get me wrong, but it still feels as like
saturated.
Dense. Yes, saturated. Yeah. That was the first thing that struck me when I heard it was like, oh shit, this sounds like the same goal of like that dense, saturated, really muddy recording, but just with a little more clarity and crispness to it.
Yeah. You know, clearly like, the other elements like are a lot clearer and like it's easier, like, but on the guitar side, like that's saturated, that's definitely like a Cannibal thing. Just like turn the gain all the way up. Sometimes you don't know what I'm playing, and that's fine. That's totally fine. It's more about like the intention of it being like, it's like, so like, it's too much sometimes. Yeah. It's okay if you don't hear it all. It's just supposed to give you like a vibe.
No, yeah, you 100% have nailed that vibe. Because like I said, when I first heard it, I was like, man, this is so true to what you guys did on Until the Ink Runs Out, but it's kind of just, or on the first version of it,
Yeah.
But it's just kind of a modern version of it, you know?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Were there any songs that stood out that you were just like fiending to re-record?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, movie produced masterpiece has always been one of my favorite songs on that record. It's just got a little of everything. So I was definitely excited for that one. There were some songs that I was a little scared about doing, like That Ain't Elvis, playing piano. Some of them I had to like, what the hell were we playing? I had to remember the riffs and like figure them out. Like literally, we had to figure them out because even back then, like we didn't play some of those songs many times at all. So I would know like certain riffs from those songs, you know, or maybe a majority of it, but like then there was some like I remember how this was played, you know. So that like some of those were just like challenging in that sense. But you know, a big thing about I was looking forward to this is just James' vocals. He's such a stronger vocalist now. I mean, he sounds sick then. The vocals sound a little muddy on the original, like more distorted, and it's cool. It fits that perfectly. But knowing what I know of what James can do now, I was like so excited to with all the re-recordings we've done. Like, I know he can do it way better, which is, you know, vocals are so much of a record. So from song to song, it's like better, just pure nature of the fact that he's a better vocalist.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also like quintessential 2000s vocalist, you know what I mean? Like vocalists now are so insane and I love it, but sometimes I just love hearing a good like mid to high scream.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Not everything has to be like low and like whatever, you know.
Yeah.
He definitely has his own thing.
Yeah. You, I think on the Garza podcast, you mentioned he does those like, wow things a lot, you know? And that's something I'll just forever tie to James is kind of like in my head, like if the word screamo was a sound, it's like James vocals, you know?
Yeah. There's like I think it's Revolutionizing the Sound of Music. Yeah, This Is How We Rock. Yeah, This Is How We Rock. Yeah. And then in the middle of the song, there's like a part where it goes, dan, 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 woo, dan. Like you like literally, you know, those fun type things. That was that kind of like, you know, Motley Crue thing I was like talking about, you know, like live, those kinds of fun things.
Absolutely.
You know, like, that song, I think it's Revolutionizing. Yeah, it has a cowbell in it.
Yeah, that's total like arena rock, just party rock type vibes.
Our first bass player, or at least one, not the first bass player, he was like one of the original bass players, maybe, I can't remember, but Javier, he'd play shows and like he'd put like a bra on the end of his bass and like like it was like hanging from his bass. Like it was pretty funny.
See, that's what I'm saying is you guys definitely had like the rock star like approach to it, but it's so funny because you guys are really just some hardcore dudes.
Yeah, I think those guys had it more than me, you know, but I loved that stuff and I thought it was funny, so I was like, yeah, hell yeah, like let's wear sunglasses or something, you know. Like we played a festival one time. I have a good memory. Like we played a good memory of this. We played a festival and I think Dillinger Escape Plan headlined.
Okay.
And when we played, James chose to wear a giant like rainbow afro wig.
Oh,
and, like,
man.
A lot of these times when these things happen, like I don't know he's going to do them ahead of time. Like,
yeah.
He just had this giant thing and it came out and I was like, whoa, crazy.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
I fucking love that. Yeah. He definitely seems like, even having been around him on that music video shoot, you know, I'm like, he just kind of does what he wants to do and not in a shitty way or anything. He's just kind of in his own lane.
Yeah. He's just a funny guy. He's just a fun dude.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. So I hate to have to like speed run through it, but there's so much, you know, there's so much content out there about a lot of your guys' later albums. But from Until the Ink Runs Out to Vanity, I feel like sonically that was a really big step up. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, it was. And I think in between there we did the best of. I think that was in between there. Where
Oh, that's
like
right. Yeah.
we did a release which tried to bring some of our older songs that we were still playing live, and
Hmm.
then we re-recorded one song which was Motionless in White, and that song was a little bit of like a aha moment for us, which leaned towards Vanity, because that
Okay.
was the song for the very first time that James was like singing a little bit,
Hmm.
and he sang on that song and it came out great. And everyone, I mean, to this day, like it's kind of like a crowd pleaser. Like a lot of people like that song. But after that, it kind of gave him a little bit of like balls to like do a little more like melodic vocals.
Yeah.
And then I was, like I was telling you, I was always trying to bring in some of the grunge stuff, some of the other post-hardcore stuff that I've always liked too.
Hmm.
And yeah, we were just full exploration mode. On Until the Ink, we explored all of these influences. On
Yeah.
Vanity, we just started exploring the next set of, like, how can we incorporate more of our things into that?
Yeah.
And it went on and on.
Yeah. Because when I listen to Vanity now, I'm like, oh man, if I wanted to show someone like peak 2000s
Yeah.
metalcore stuff, like I would probably hand them that record because it has a lot of everything. It has the heavy stuff, it has the melody, it has some singing, but it's all honestly super tight and I think pretty polished.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy who recorded it was pretty rad. And we, like everything, we spend a lot of time
Hmm.
on everything we do. And so,
And so, where was that recorded?
um, I don't know if he had a name for it. It was this dude, Greg. There was a
Okay.
studio. I forgot the name of like what it was. It doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, just in Orange County.
Okay. And you were that was still Trustkill, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then was Obsession the jump up to major label? I forget.
So we uh, recorded. We started having like major labels sniff around at us
Okay.
at this point, and like showing up to shows, and like they would talk to us or like let's go get dinner and just like meet and whatever.
Yeah.
But nothing was like happening. So we were just doing
Hmm.
our own thing, and then we recorded Obsession,
Okay.
and we recorded Reset Obsession, and then when we were in the, I think it was like when we were in the mixing phase of that record, meaning
Hmm.
all of the songs were written and recorded,
Yeah.
we got interest from Epic Records that was, and I mean it couldn't have been more perfect at the time because the A&R guy that that came in and met with us, this dude Pete, he was an old hardcore dude from Huntington Beach, California.
Oh
And
yeah.
so he knew the history, he knew where we came from, he totally got like what we were trying to do and go. He was like, you're
Hmm.
not just a hardcore man, obviously. You like all this other shit and you're trying to do like a lot of other interesting things. And I feel like that could maybe be cool on this other, you know. So the idea was like we'll just continue putting it out with Trustkill,
Hmm.
but that Trustkill would have like an automatic upstream to Epic. So I think the major
Mm.
label technically owned it, but Trustkill put it out.
Yeah.
And then so it wasn't until we did the self-titled, the next album, when it came out proper on a major. But at that point, we had already been like working with the major for a little while.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. And Obsession is where you guys really began to lean into some more, like, I would just call it rock influence.
Yeah, that was like where we were like, how can we be a very heavy rock band? You
Hmm.
know, that was the goal at that point in the band, was we wanted to keep very heavy parts like Long Way Home or just Tower of Snakes, you know. But then there was like other parts of heavy that was like crushed on that record that had like, there was no mutes, but the riff was extremely dirty
Hmm.
and heavy and like powerful. And so yeah, we were like kind of doing stuff like that and trying to really tighten the songs to like whatever the essence could be. Like
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this song? How can we accentuate that? that's like, we were literally exploring that. We'd never done that before. So Vanities was still like crazy songs, like long songs, with lots of riffs, and we had never tried the kind of like tightened thing, and so that's what we were trying to do.
Okay. Did you know that you were writing an absolute ass beater when you wrote Tower of Snakes?
So the funny thing about Tower of Snakes, this is good background trivia. At the time, I was in Throwdown, and Ken, who was our drummer for 18 Visions, he also started playing drums for Throwdown. Okay. And I can't remember how long he was in the band. It wasn't like that long, but he and I were always, because at that point we were kind of the main songwriters for 18 Visions, and so we were always like demoing and writing songs and showing each other whatever. Well, he was like, "Hey, I wrote this song for Throwdown," and that's what would become Tower of Snakes. And I was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like full Throwdown for me. I don't know about that, And so I was like, but I think like this would be cool for 18V, And so that's how it ended up going there. We brought it into practice. So he and I were already practicing for both bands, right? So practice space for Throwdown, practice space for 18 Visions. So between one of the two, we were playing that song together, and he had a demo of it that we were listening to. And that's how that ended up happening.
What a trip. Because, dude, that's the breakdown.
I know. We had no idea like that was going to be like a thing or something like that.
Yeah.
That took on a life of its own like later, especially with like the dude at the wrestling match that had the Tower Snake song like that like took it into a whole different level. We thought it was a rad song, so that was like one of the songs we made a video of for that album. But no, I didn't. Yeah, we just thought it was a rad song.
It's so iconic, and it's insane to hear that it was potentially a Throwdown song, because that, to me, I also agree, is not at all a Throwdown song.
Yeah, I know, right? Especially once you put James' vocals on it, and to his credit, like we've tried so many different styles of songwriting over the years. If you put his vocals on it, like it just feels like 18 Visions. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, iconic 18 Visions song. So, do you think the major label interest had anything to do with your proximity to LA and just Southern California?
No. Pete was from New York. I used to stay at his house. This is our A&R guy from the major. From the major. No, I think just, it was still the time period where like being on a major label kind of had meaning. You were still trying to put songs like on radio stations. Radio stations was still a thing at the time. Yeah. So it still was a potentially helpful thing to like get you to different audiences. And it did. We got to like tour with like Him, like the band Him, who we love. Yeah. I don't know if you like them or not, but that was a band that we really loved. We got to do their first US tour, which was like epic. They were like blowing up. So we got to do like different types of tours and stuff. And
was that a goal of your guys'? Did you want to go to get access to bigger tours and whatnot?
Yeah, we wanted to be like a full-time band. If you sign to a major, you get paid a lot of money, which was like financially, if we could support ourselves financially without having a day job, which is like what we would do before, you'd have to come home from tour and like get a job, and because it's just the way it was. If we could try to get to that next level to be like, that could be our job, like that's what we were aiming for. So we signed and we got like good tour support. We got a good like signing bonus, all that kind of stuff, which was like sick, and so we kind of did live that life like for a while where we got to tour a lot, and, we were on a tour bus and all that stuff,
Yeah, what an insane leap from probably being in gross vans for years at that point, right?
Yeah. And I think for a lot of fans, it was like a little bit weird. They were like, oh, like I know them like from the hardcore scene. I know them as a hardcore band, In our brains, it was like, yeah, but I watched all these like crazy big bands for like my whole life. It's not weird to me. Like I know
Yeah.
Sepultura tours in a bus, and like
Hmm.
there are like these bands that I love are on major labels and stuff. Obviously, I love the hardcore stuff, but like so it wasn't weird to us to make that transition, and we were starting to see bands like Killswitch Engage like go to like a next level and like have big tours, and so it was like that sounds fun.
Yeah, 100%. Does it feel like the major label era for you guys was successful?
No, I mean I look back at it as like a success in the fact that like it's kind of amazing that like we got to that place and that we put out singles and they played it on the radio and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like it's cool. It's like a bucket list thing maybe, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I don't think of it as successful for the band. Like there were some cool things that happened, like an interesting story I've told before where like we tried to go out with like a certain single, but all the radio stations were like, no, you should play this other one, Victim, which was the one that we wanted to go out the door with as our first single. And so all the
Okay.
radio labels, all the radio stations just like changed gears and started playing that one organically. That was kind of cool.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it became like number 6 on like the rock charts and stuff.
Wild.
Yeah. It was, we're like trying to tell the label, like, guys, like, even though our A&R guy was pushing for us and like he was in our camp, it's just
Hmm.
there's like another level of corporate stuff that never listen to your music, that like they just run it as a business, like
Yeah.
they are selling products, and their product at that time was like Incubus, like whatever,
Yeah.
like completely different stratosphere, that like they're just like, give me stuff that'll make money.
Yeah.
So we were trying to tell them like we're a rock band, put out the rock singles, and they just couldn't.
Yeah.
But no, so at the end of the day, like we got dropped from that label,
Okay.
and we were, should we like make new demos? We could make more good music. I knew we could, and like shop demos, and our manager was like ready to shop to other, labels and stuff. But I think on like the last touring cycle, I was talking to Ken, who was, original member of the band. Ken and James were original members. And I was like, Ken and I decided we had rid this wave all the way to the top, and if it doesn't work out, then that's when we'll call it quits. And so that's what happened. Is like we got dropped, and we are like, you know what? I'm kind of burnt. Personally, I was super burnt from touring, and I was ready for like something different.
Yeah. 100%. Because I mean, at that point, you were probably what? You're probably talking about like 7, 8 years of just being on the road, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, we had done so much touring, and we had sunk everything into it. Was just, we were a little bit exhausted. Yeah, I remember our final tour was like with the Deftones and Thrice in Australia, and I was like looking forward to being home. Like that's how bad I was. Like, dude, I miss my friends at home. I just want to go to a movie theater. I'm kind of an
Yeah.
introvert. I'm like a nerd. I'm like, I just want
Yeah.
to like go see the new movie that's out and like get coffee with my friends and like see my girlfriend,
Yeah.
see my family.
Recharge.
My sister was like having kids, at around that time. And so like, yeah, I was like ready to try something different, lifestyle change.
100%. Yeah. As an introvert myself, I totally feel that. Like I love moments like this of like going in deep and nerding out and stuff. But I've thought about like, I would never last on tour.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
This-
why now it's like for a lot of bands, some of the older bands, it's so rad because we can go play like a weekend of 3 shows, still be a band, still be creative, still do like what we love to do, but also still be home,
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would love to hear your perspective as someone who's been super DIY, making your own zines in the 90s, and then to kind of the mid-level of like you have label support, you're a well-known hardcore band, but then major label support as well. But now in this era, it seems like you can be a mid-level hardcore band and be putting food on your table. Does that sound accurate to you?
I don't know about full time and like paying the bills and all that, because we don't, we have like our careers and stuff that we do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
We can make money from 18 Visions for sure.
Yeah.
We put out, it's almost like we have a captured audience. We have people that know us. So we just put
Yeah.
out our own records at this point. We don't have a label. We just like, dude, you put it on Instagram or wherever. Hey guys, like something's coming out. Like people who are fans or like us, whatever. We're not like looking for new. I mean, it's cool. Like
Yeah.
it's always rad when you like meet new fans or whatever. But like we're not like purposely trying to do that anymore. You know, so
Yeah.
people know where to find us. So it's really rad that it's just like this one-to-one connection at this point. Like we got new shit. You should check it out. We're gonna be on the road. Come check it out. We're not gonna be blasting you like we're not gonna like tour through your city every month or anything anymore.
100%.
You know.
Yeah. It's still as big as heavy music has got over the last 5 years or so. It still seems like a grind for some bands where I'm like, damn, y'all are touring every couple of months. I see you announcing stuff, and you still see bands flame out because living on the road must be insane.
I think it's tough for, newer, smaller bands. I know that they do the same thing, like they tour and then they have like other jobs that they try to like pick up on when they can, and they're making ends meet however they can do it in the younger tier. But there is like another level there where if you're a little bit bigger, yeah, it is possible to like sell a bunch of shit online because you can reach out to audiences like globally. And it's easier to cut out the middleman in some respects if you want to. I'm sure some bands still don't do that, but like, like our friends in Atreyu, they still tour like, constantly. And like our friends from Every Time I Die, they were still doing that, or, Better Lovers, so I know like they're making it work. They're making it happen. I have never sat down and asked them about like how exactly, whatever. But I would be curious to know like at some point now, like maybe we're touring with Atreyu later this year. Like maybe like ask them like, what's it like for you these days? Like, how does it all work out? Because there's no like royalty stuff. It's like, it's just a different way to like, you're getting like a good guarantee from your shows really. And then you're selling merch. Lots of merch, depending on the band, and I don't know about the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm so curious too because I'm just an information nerd, and just love deconstructing things and knowing how they work, and that's what I see. Also, is like I saw Poison the Well on that Opposite of December tour, and I went out to the LA show, and we're in Hollywood Palladium on a Friday night, and there's 3,000 people. Oh, you were?
Yeah, James and I went to that show. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. And it was crazy. I was like, dude, this is like 3,000 people here. Like, so I'm like, of course you're making money off that show. But like you said, streaming's not really doing shit for you, Right. So is it just that shows have gotten so much bigger and better that carries the majority of the weight, Like, I'm just speculating.
I think there's a lot of festivals now compared to like what used to be around. So there's a lot more like kind of bigger paydays that you can play. And those things, a lot of them tend to bring out a lot of people. So the more people, the more they can pay the bands, And so and then there's, and then multiply that by just like the different countries. So like a lot of bands, like, our friends at Stick to Your Guns, like they'll go play Europe, and they know like they can go play summer and make like a good portion of their money for the year just from like those shows overseas at those festivals and stuff like that,
That's fucking awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm here for it. Like, I called this whole project Hardcore Dropout because as much as I feel like, a child of hardcore and all the ethics and morals that I have come from hardcore, I am someone who wants to like grow similar to 18 Visions, wants to like see what else is out there, and like I want to make money off Hardcore Dropout eventually. I want this to be my living, and like that doesn't always align with hardcore ethics, but I think it's fucking awesome if a hardcore band can go tour and make all the money they need for the year off a couple tours in a year.
And I think that's awesome, and that's your goal, and you should absolutely do that. Like that is so rad. My personal belief on the hardcore ethics, like what is hardcore? Like for me, hardcore is about you know, rather than punk and being like just kind of like fuck everything, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever, hardcore like was trying to be like more like mentally aware of like consciously aware of like what you were doing, the people around you, what's happening in the world. That's how
Yeah.
that's how, you know, and that doesn't have anything to do with like having a job. Like everyone has to have a
Yeah.
job, you know, everyone has to like pay for, you know, that's the world that we live in. We got to like pay for our food and our rent and our cars and like whatever. And for me now, it's my family, you know. So I just don't. It's not really part of the same thing. I know it used to be like this major label thing is like this weird thing, but
Yeah.
nah, man, great music should be heard and seen and all
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for, you know, what's happening right now when I see what's happening with Knocked Loose or
Yeah.
Turnstile or stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm so here for it. And I felt like even at a young age, I always had that mentality. It's why I also love Nirvana as much as I do. Because like we said earlier, they took all these things we love and they took it to a new level and got hate for it. But I always resonated with that of like, they still did exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And to me, that's punk. That's hardcore.
for sure.
You know,
Absolutely.
so
In Utero was like crazier than anything. It was so
Dude.
so dirty and crazy. Like it that really like, you know, like turned
Yeah.
like, what are they doing? Yeah, for a lot of people. But I was like, I get it. I know what
Yeah.
they're doing.
100%. Yeah.
I love
when
it.
When I was a kid and I heard what I heard In Utero, I thought at the time I was like, oh, this must have been earlier stuff for them because
Okay.
sonically
Yeah.
it was so, you know, I was just getting into them and sonically it was so grungy and just, you know, gritty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this must have came before Nevermind. And then my friend was like, no, this was their last record. And I was like, what the fuck? Like they
Yeah.
really did what they wanted to do, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, huge band for me. Obviously huge for a lot of people, but in some weird way, I still think they get unnecessary hate just because they blew up the way they did, you know?
Yeah. Anyone who gets to that level, it's just there's going to be like hate.
Yeah, 100%. Well, just to round things off, I'm so curious, you as someone who's been doing this for a long time, as a songwriter, as a musician, and now, you know, a producer in a sense, who are some bands that you're really hyped on, modern bands?
Modern bands.
Let me hold on. Let me rephrase that. Who are modern metalcore bands that you're hyped on?
Well, like Knock Loose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned like they are still like of like the newer world for sure. I love that they are the type of like hardcore kids that like really dug into the past. Like they are really true. They come from the scene and they've just like taken off into the next level. I love that. So I take it, you're a big Cannibal fan?
Not like gigantic, but I would say a big death metal fan. Like my Cannibal would have been Suffocation.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
I get
fucking love Suffocation. Yeah.
Well, there's this band called Beast Plague, and they're
Okay.
from Florida, and they're like
Okay.
straight edge death metal.
No way.
Yeah, we're gonna be playing with them in October. I can't wait to see them. And I
Fuck
think
yeah.
like I don't know, they're new. They have like one album out, and I don't think they're like very well known, but like I think like they're definitely like catching on. Maybe. Anyways, I love them. Like it's so
Hell yeah.
heavy. It's brutal. They're like one of my favorite new ones. There's a band from out here called Mongrel. I think they're from San Diego actually.
Yep. Yeah.
Mongrel's sick. They covered Cannibal when I saw them, so I fell in love.
Fuck yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah, right. Those are probably like kind of like the main ones. There's probably other ones that I'd have to like thumb through my stuff, but
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna send you a band after this. Let me double check their name. I just discovered them. You know the band Citizen,
yeah,
like the kind of alt rock emo band.
yeah.
So their singer Matt and some other people just released a new EP the band is called Put to Death, but it is like very like I would describe it as like death metal inspired hardcore.
Rad. Okay.
Yeah, it's fucking sick. I've been listening to it a lot this week.
Yes, please.
Do you listen to No Cure at all?
we played with them and I saw them and I thought they were rad, but no, I don't like
Okay.
listen to them on the regular or anything.
Yeah, they're super sick. Just because like there's this really cool like, it's funny. I guess you could quantify it as like deathcore thing happening where like hardcore kids. The way I describe it is like hardcore kids who grew up listening to Dying Fetus.
Yeah.
You know, like so No
Yeah.
Cure, this other band called Walking Wounded. There's a really cool like little movement happening right now. Mongrel also, where it's like,
Yeah.
and this is like hardcore energy, but the riffing is just like straight from like the death metal playbook, you know?
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Totally.
A lot of cool shit out right now. Well, Keith, what's next for 18 Visions?
Next week, we play Chicago, Detroit, and Louisville. Next month, we're playing that like Hellfire. I don't know if it's Hellfire, Hellfest, like in New Jersey, and we play Boston. So we got a bunch of stuff. We're going to the UK with Atreyu, and then we're going to do like a West Coast kind of run with them as well.
Okay.
Probably the most unique thing, which is another. It's not like a bucket list. I never thought I would ever do this, but it's kind of like a funny. We're going to do that Lamb of God's like Headbangers Boat.
Oh, hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
And Fear Factory's on that, who I love. And
Damn.
Kublai Khan's on it, which is rad. I love them. Bunch of cool bands. So that'll be a weird experience playing metal hardcore on a boat.
Yeah, that's a trip. To think of people moshing, you know, in the fucking middle of the ocean. Like, what a trip.
It's like over the course of all the things I've experienced in hardcore in my life, just like this has got to be something interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Real quick, actually, I can't leave this podcast. I really wanted to stay focused on 18 Visions, but dude, Dukas, like A Place You Can't Come Back From was my album of the year last year. Like,
Oh, wow.
genuinely, like, it was just like, it's funny. For Hardcore Dropout, there's certain albums that I'm like, oh, this is the album that I should like push. But then on a personal level, there's albums where I'm like, nah, this is just my shit that I'm listening to in the car all the time. And A Place You Can't Come Back From was that album for me.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
really,
that.
really fucking cool album.
Yeah, that was a COVID project that turned into something. And, you know, when we weren't touring or anything like that, and 18B like couldn't go do anything, whatever. Yeah, Cam and I were like becoming like close friends. And so we kicked that off, and it's turned into a really cool, fun thing. And we've been playing. We play Saturday. We play this Saturday. So that's always playing with Dukas is always like a cool way to like play local shows and see new bands and stuff like that too. You know.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out there for that Saturday show actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll be in San Diego. My brother lives in Redlands, so I told him like, hey, you want to just meet in Pomona? I'm playing it a little bit by ear because it's already a trek for me to get to San Diego, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be sick if you did, dude. Come hang. We'll get you in or whatever.
Fuck yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, because I saw you guys last year at, Within These Walls, you know, and that was awesome, but I want to see you guys in an even smaller venue.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, any last words, any shout outs or anything like that?
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we did the re-release, and so that's kind of our main focus this year when you see us. Although I think overseas when we play in the UK, we didn't get to play the UK on the Obsession Run stuff, so we'll be playing some of those kind of songs out that way for those for like fans out there. But I would just say, in general, what we've been trying to do is like put out new music, work on the re-release stuff, put out new music, and we've been trying to like go back and forth with that because writing music is still so important for us. So expect more in the future.
Hell yeah. Love to hear it. Well, thanks a ton, Keith, and we'll talk soon, and hopefully I'll see you on Saturday, man.
Yeah. Take care, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. See ya.